So we will talk about monitoring Docker daemon with Prometheus and Grafana. Okay, so this is not required in Docker yet. Okay, because we did not see what is Prometheus, Grafana. But I just wanted to give some brief introduction about monitoring this daemon with Prometheus and Grafana. I'll give very minimal details about what is Prometheus, how it works, and what is Grafana, and then how can you start monitoring your Docker daemon. Okay, just some basics. Okay, I won't go in detail. What is Prometheus? Okay, so basically, Prometheus is an open source monitoring and alerting tool. It was originally built by SoundCloud, but now it is an open source project maintained in Cloud Native Computing Foundation, maintained by CNCF. Okay, so it is the second project after Kubernetes that CNCF maintaining. And what Prometheus does is it collect metrics. So what is a metric, guys?
Data point.
A
Yeah,
numerical value.
it's a numerical value. Like it can be the CPU, mem usage, uh, anything that can be numerically shown, right? So it is a metric. Now what Prometheus does it collect metrics at certain time points at the time series data. That means at this timestamp, this is the CPU utilization of the container. And for the next second, this is the CPU utilization. So what it will do is it will collect metrics, all these metrics, and it will store them inside its database called time series DB, also known as TSDB. Okay. And Prometheus can collect these metrics from lot of sources. It can collect from a container, it can collect from your application, it can collect from your physical host, your applications. So in Prometheus, you call them as targets. Okay. So like from where Prometheus is getting this time series data. And Prometheus has its own query language called PromQL to query this data. Okay. So let's talk about targets in some time, but let's understand Prometheus architecture. So Prometheus has a lot of individual components. Okay. So if you look at the Prometheus server, so it has a retrieval service to retrieve the data from various targets. You have time series database that stores in some location, and then it also has a HTTP server to show a dashboard. Okay. Now Prometheus can retrieve the data from multiple sources. As I said, it can collect the data from your Linux VM, Windows VM, your Kubernetes pods, your applications. It can be from anywhere. Okay. So those are known as targets. So what this retrieval service do is it will try to get the metrics from those targets. So for example, if I have a host, from that host, I can just collect the metrics. So this host now becomes a target for Prometheus. Okay, similarly, inside Kubernetes, so you cannot have a specific target. Okay, let's say you have pods. So pods may be created by anyone and they can be destroyed by anyone, which means there is no standard target. So targets are always changing. Okay, in this case, these retrieval services use so-called service discovery to discover various services, which means what all pods running, what all deployments running, and all these things dynamically in the real time instead of you hard coding it. Which means if I have a host machine, so in order for Prometheus to collect the metrics, I need to give the IP address of the host or host name of the host, so that Prometheus can connect to this host. So what if these hosts are dynamic? They are always created and destroyed, which means I don't have the IP address or the host name, which is fixed. They are always changing. Then Prometheus cannot get this information every time, right? I cannot give this information manually. So in this case, it uses so-called service discovery. Okay, so this is a mechanism so that automatically discovers its targets like pods which are created and destroyed all the time. So using service discovery, I can get the real-time targets. Okay, and then uh, so let's say you have an application. Okay, so let's say if I have to monitor these application metrics, right? Okay, so this retrieval service can talk to the application to fetch the metrics. But what if my application doesn't have those abilities to expose the metrics. Like my application has no code written to expose its CPU usage, mem usage. Then what I have to do in this case? Let's say I created a database, but I don't know like which metrics to expose so that Prometheus can monitor that database. In this case, I can take the help of so-called exporters. So these exporters will export the data for you. Okay. So let's say for database, you have database exporters directly available, which means using these services, you can actually export the data or the metrics in such a format that Prometheus can understand them. Okay. So those are called exporters. You can just go to the documentation and learn more. And for let's say you have something like cron jobs. Okay. So these jobs run for relatively lesser period of time, right? Like let's say 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Okay. So if you want to monitor these cron jobs, it is very difficult. Okay, because cron jobs will run and they will be killed. Okay, so within 10 seconds, your Prometheus may not get that information. Okay, so these are all called short-lived jobs. So how do Prometheus monitor all these short-lived jobs? Because by the time Prometheus try to scrape the data, so you call it as scrape the data, getting the data. Okay, by the time Prometheus try to scrape that data, that job itself might not exist. Right, guys? Correct?
Yes, Vikram.
So in this case, what Prometheus do is Prometheus will take the help of another service known as push gateway. So where you can push all your short-lived jobs information, its metrics and all to push gateway service. Then push gateway becomes the target for it. So now your Prometheus can scrape the push gateway for all the information. And for all the short-lived jobs, you make sure that you push it to push gateway, and push gateway runs for long. I mean, it's a running service. So Prometheus can get that information from there. Okay. And not only this, collection of metrics is not the only thing that Prometheus do. So Prometheus can also integrate with Alert Manager. Okay, so Alert Manager is a tool that manages the alerts for you. Let's say, so for one of the service, CPU utilization has increased to 70%. Okay, so now I want Prometheus to alert me. Of course, Prometheus can alert me directly in its dashboard, but if I want the alert in the form of PagerDuty, email, or Slack notification and all, so I have to configure those in the alert manager. Then what this Prometheus can do is Prometheus can contact this alert manager and alert you accordingly whenever some metric is crossing some thresholds. Okay, it can also integrate with alert manager. So what if I want some beautiful dashboards? Okay, so Prometheus server shows all the data in the raw format, like 70%, 80%, but I want visualizations. Okay, so here Prometheus can also integrate with Grafana. Okay. So what Grafana will do is it will take the data from Prometheus and it will display the dashboards like in the form of pie charts, line, bar graphs, some widgets and all. Okay. And not only this, if you are building your own, what do you say, monitoring tool that requires the data. Okay. So what you can do is you can just use the APIs of Prometheus. So you design your own application, use the APIs of Prometheus to get the real-time metrics information, and using those metrics, you can create your own, custom dashboards and all. Okay. So this is the basics of Prometheus, architecture. This is how Prometheus looks like. By default, it runs on port 9090 dashboard. Okay, you can see various targets that Prometheus is currently scraping the metrics from. Okay, once you have enough number of what do you say, the targets, they will be displayed here. You can see whether the target that Prometheus is trying to get the metrics from. We also call it as scraping the metrics, whether that particular service is up or not. Okay, that is there. And coming to Grafana, it is a visualization tool. Okay, so it can take the data from multiple data sources. So we call it as a data source from where Grafana can get the data. So Grafana can get the data from your Prometheus and other tools like Elasticsearch, MySQL. So what you have to do is you have to just feed the data to Grafana. So Grafana can use that data and show you the dashboards. Okay. So for Grafana, Prometheus is one source of data. Okay, or also known as data source. Even Grafana also has its own notification channel where when Grafana finds some alerts, right? When it finds some metrics to be crossing a threshold, it in fact can also alert, send the notifications via email, Slack, PagerDuty, and all those things. So you can create very good dashboards in Grafana, and the default port of Grafana is 3000 in order to access Grafana. Okay, so this is about Prometheus and Grafana. So what we need to do first is, um, you know, so guys, you're getting my audio?
Yes, Vikram.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what we have to do first is, if you go back to this awesome Docker compose, so you have Prometheus and Grafana already available here, but directly we cannot use them. Okay, so I'll tell you why, what all changes we require to use. So first thing is your Docker should expose the metrics. But what is a metric? Okay, we already know what is a metric. So what are metrics that a particular application can expose? Okay, so basically it can expose its the networking in and out, CPU usage, mem usage, number of requests it is receiving, number of requests it is trying to send out, the total number of 200 status codes, 404 status codes. So there are many things basically an application can expose as a metric. So mostly these metrics are available, these app developers, right? They will try to have them exposed on some path. So what is that path is, if I say, if I access my application like this, they might try to have some endpoints. Like, so one endpoint they might call it as /health. So if anyone calls this, endpoint like this URL, they might get some response code saying that 200, the website is up and all. So this is minimal information that they will provide just for showing that this website is up. And for exposing all their metrics, they will use something known as /metrics. Okay, got it? So if someone tries to access this /metrics, then they will get all the metrics. But these metrics should not be publicly exposed. And also sometimes for accessing this metrics endpoints, you might also require some authentication and all. Okay. And that's the reason why Docker by default will not expose its metrics. It should be enabled. Okay. So what I'll do is I also have a link here. So if you go to this monitoring with Prometheus in the README file, so I have the link to the daemon, so where I can actually collect metrics with Prometheus. Okay. So first you need to enable Docker daemon to expose the metrics. Okay. So how do you expose the metrics is you need to change this daemon file and add this metrics address. Okay, so from where, by default, the metrics are available on 9323. Okay, so let me also sign in because I need to unblock that 9323 in the security groups. Okay, so it exposes the metrics on 9323, and this is a local address. But what I'll do is I'll try to put it as the public IP address so I can see from outside. So I'll go to the EC2 instance where my Docker daemon is running, and what is the port 9323. Okay, so let me go to the security groups and let's open 9323 so I can read the uh, daemon metrics, remember. Okay, so I'm opening 9323. Let me also open 9090 for checking the Prometheus UI, and 3000 for checking the oh, which one, guys? Hmm?
Grafana.
Grafana UI. Okay, so I just opened them. Now the thing I have to do is I have to add this daemon.json file if it is not there. Okay, so we have configured this you know earlier. Okay, so if it is an empty file, you just try to add this entry here. Okay, that that you're saying that matrix address is this. Okay, so matrix address, the last line you should not put comma. So matrix address is IP colon 9323. So what I'll do is I'll use the public IP of the instance. Okay, the reason why I'm using public IP is because in case if your Prometheus and Grafana are running on a different server, they need to connect to the daemon using this public IP. I'm just exposing the public IP. So once I'm done with the changes, it's always uh, best practice to restart the Docker daemon. Okay. It says Jana CTLXCU, so there is some issue, I think. Failure cannot assign requested. Oh, cannot assign requested address. Oh, okay. So this address is not known, right? So this is a public IP. I forgot. So what I should do is, I can put it all zeros. So which means on any IPv4 address, I can access this service. I forgot. Then let's restart the daemon. So did I miss any comma and all? No, right? So it says negative exit code. So which one we are actually using? I think I have changed a lot of things here. So let me do one thing. So let's create an instance quickly. Okay. So I'll call it as monitoring Docker. I'll use this AMI Linux only. So let me create a bigger instance like D2 medium. Select a key which you already have. Memory size and all, I mean the root volume size and all are fine. Okay, so monitoring. Okay, let me log in into this. Okay, so sudo su. Let me install docker git -y and then systemctl enable --now docker. Okay, so we need to create this file. Okay, so vi into this file. And then just add this. And then change it to 0.0.0. Okay, let me save it. Okay, restart Docker. And also, so we need to open the ports again, right? In the security, edit the inbound rules. Add 93, which one? 9323. 9090 and then 3000. Okay. Clear, guys? Any questions?
Vikram, on 9393, the metrics of the Docker will explode on slash metrics.
Yeah. So if you see here, so actually it will display on slash metrics only. So that's the default one. Okay, so let me show you. This is the IP address, colon 9323. If you simply enter this, it won't it won't show you anything. But if I just say metrics, see here, these are all the metrics that your Prometheus can understand. Okay. So let's say I want to know how many containers are running, right? So there is also a metric for that. Okay, if I just search for something known as running, okay. See, currently there are 0 running, zero starting containers, 0 pending. Okay. So I can, this is my Docker host, right? So let me run one nginx here. And let me create one more. Okay. And then if I try to refresh this page and search for the same running again. Okay, I think I need to reload it. See here, 2. Okay, I was showing a different thing in that case. Got it?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so this is how it actually exposes the metrics. Okay. Now, if you refer this documentation, so actually Prometheus also requires a configuration. Okay. So what is that configuration is, it is called as prometheus.yaml. So it is usually put under etc prometheus.yaml. Okay. So what that configuration says is like, what is the scrape interval? Let's say if I have 10 different targets. So when should I scrape them? What is the interval between the scrape? Like 15 seconds. Evaluation, like every 15 seconds it will try to evaluate. And the scrape configurations is important, so where we'll have the jobs. So jobs are like what targets to scrape. So by default, metrics will scrape its own metrics on port 9090. So the job name is called Prometheus. In the configurations target, it is saying localhost 9090 because it is scraping its own metrics. And you also have job name Docker. Okay. And in the targets, if you see, you have to give your target of your Docker host, like IP address colon 9323. And by default, it will take slash metrics as the endpoint. You don't have to put that. Okay. So what we will do is we will go to this awesome compose again and then try to understand how to use that Prometheus and Grafana stack that we have. Okay, of course, you can just deploy Prometheus and then after deploy Grafana, but anyways, we can do both at the same time. Okay, so this is a repository. Um, so what I'll do is I'll try to open it here as well, Prometheus Grafana. Just after this GitHub, I hope everyone knows this trick. If I simply use 1s after github.com, it will open a VS Code editor here in the browser itself. Okay. So under the Prometheus and Grafana, you can see a compose file. So what compose file is saying here is, for Prometheus, run this image. This is the name of the container. Okay, it is taking the prometheus.yaml file configuration. Okay, so that's the internal one. It listens on 1990. Restart unless stopped, or you can put restart as always. And then it is mounting some volumes. Okay, so what is the volume it is mounting? /Prometheus. See here, you have the Prometheus folder. So it is more, it is taking this Prometheus folder and then it is mounting into etc Prometheus internally, because Prometheus expects the prometheus.yaml file inside it. And then it is trying to persist the data using a Docker volume. Similarly, Grafana, container name, port on which it is exposed, and then some Grafana credentials. So the default credential is admin and Grafana. Okay, and Grafana is also needs some configuration. So it is also mounting this local Grafana folder into the container. That's it. Okay. But the thing here is we need to know how to configure this Prometheus. So this is the default Prometheus that it is scraping itself. Okay. So this is a scrape config. So we need to add one more extra job here. Okay. So which means here I need to edit that prometheus.yaml file to add an extra job to scrape our Docker metrics. Okay. So how will you add? Uh, 1 second. You will create another job name. So this is the job that Prometheus uses to scrape. So job name is, let's say, I'll say Docker Daemon, something like this. And scrape interval and all, you can put it here. Otherwise, it will consider the global ones. So scrape timeout, metrics path by default it is standard. Schema is HTTP by default standard. So I'm more interested in this static configs target. So what is the target of my metric now? So it is this. So the IP address /9323. So this is the target. Okay. So remove any HTTP and all those things. Okay, because by default it will consider the schema to be HTTP, and even though you have on /metrics, the default metrics path is /metrics only. Otherwise, I can also put it here as well. Okay, that is also fine. Now I have to save this file. So my Prometheus configuration is ready. Okay, and if I do ls-l, I have the compose.yaml, right? So let's bring this Docker compose. Okay, so Docker compose or sometimes Docker -compose will also, it's not there because it's a fresh VM. Let's install it. Okay, so manually, just like before, let me just install it and then just change the permission. Okay, and then use Docker compose up -d. Okay, so it will pull Grafana first and then it will pull the Prometheus. Okay, because of the dependency, if it is there. Otherwise, it will try to uh, run them in any order, the order in which it is defined or any order. Now let's see Docker Compose PS. Okay, so both your Grafana and Prometheus are running. Okay, so let's take the IP address of this. And your Prometheus is running on 9090 port, right? And your Grafana is running on port 3000. Okay, so this is Prometheus. You can run some queries here and enter. Okay, so let me just take that query. Okay, so the query is this. Okay, so just don't take the last value. That last value is the result. I mean the data. So what I'm saying is just get all the containers in which the state is running. And if you execute it, you should see the number of containers result. That is 4. Okay. And you have alerts if you have configured the alerts. You have graphs here. And then if you want to see what all targets and configuration. So if you click on the configuration, whatever configuration that you given, right? Like we have given Docker daemon configuration, okay, to scrape this one. And you can also see the targets. Target means what Prometheus is trying to, basically scrape. So as we already know, Prometheus is scraping itself, and also Prometheus is scraping our Docker daemon metrics. And the state indicates that your target is up, it's not down. In case if you bring down the daemon, so basically this will be down again. Okay, so this is just the basics of your Prometheus. So Prometheus, as you already seen, it is just giving the data. Okay. Now coming to the Grafana, okay, so in the compose file, we mentioned the credentials, that is admin is the username and Grafana is the password. So Grafana needs a data source. Okay, so Grafana has to pull the data from a source. So for this, you need to go to the connections, and see, these are all the data sources, which means Grafana can take the metrics from your Google Analytics, your Prometheus. It's a lot of these are all the data sources for it. Okay, so now if I click on data sources, by default it is configured to use Prometheus as the data source, because this is the default. The reason why this is default is if I go back to the repository and go to Grafana data sources, so by default Prometheus is added as the data source. If it is not there, you can manually go to the dashboard and add. And let me click on this data source. Okay, I wanted to see whether this data source is actually Grafana is actually receiving the data or not, by simply clicking on save and test. Okay, you can see it is successfully querying the Prometheus to get the data. Okay, now coming to the dashboard. So currently you don't have any dashboards. Okay, so there are multiple ways you can create the dashboards. So there are a lot of public dashboards available. Okay, so if you click on these public dashboards, for Kubernetes, for a lot of things, for a lot of data sources, you already have the uh, dashboards. Okay, so if you just search for Grafana dashboards, Grafana will give you a lot of example dashboards, so where I can use them directly. Okay, so let's say if I search for Docker, okay, it may or may not work for our use case. Docker, let's say if I have something known as Daemon, I don't have it. Let me just take mm, maybe Docker, this one, Docker and host monitoring with Prometheus. Okay, so here you have download JSON option, copy ID option. Okay, I can use anything. So I'll say just copy ID. So in order to create a dashboard, right? So I can go back to the dashboard, click on create dashboard. Okay, I can import the dashboard or add the visualization manually. Let me click on import dashboard. So you have an option to copy that JSON file or upload the JSON file, or just paste that ID. Okay, and so it will automatically load all those configurations and select your data source. Okay, so that the dashboard should take the data from this Prometheus and click on import. See, they might use different metrics or different panels, to show all these metrics. So currently the uptime, it is showing the total targets online, but it is not able to show you, what all containers are there, like whether they are started, stopped. Okay, so that information and all, it is missing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try to create my own a simple dashboard. Okay, click on create a dashboard, add a visualization. So data source is Prometheus. Okay, so this is the dashboard that I'll be creating. I'll simply create a panel. Okay, so for this, what I have to do is, I have to check the data source. Okay, so what is the metric I wanted to uh, uh, display here, right? So I'm interested in this metric called running. Okay, so let me copy this metric. Okay, so this metric running, um, you know, uh, okay, I'll select that metric. So it will just give you this information. So you can add some labels and all those things. I can also click on run query to see whether it is giving the data or not. If you see here, it has given the data that there are currently 4 running containers. Okay, and this is a time series data. I can also change this time series data to something like a gaze or a statistic. So let me click on statistic. Okay, and click on apply. So now this is my new a single panel. I did not add the title, so if I just click on edit, I can just add the name. uh, no, so there are some, yeah, running containers, something like this, some description, transparent background, and all these things I can actually do. Got it? Clear, guys? So what will happen if I bring down any container. So let me say Docker PS. So let me bring down an existing a Docker container called Nginx. Okay. So now this has to become 3, but it will take some time. Oh, we did not save the panel. Okay, I think we did not save the panel. So it will take some time and then it will just become 3. Otherwise, you can just click on refresh. It will automatically give you 3 because of the scrape interval, right? So it needs at least 10 seconds to show that data. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Yes, Vikram.
Okay, so that is the basics of Prometheus and Grafana, and this is how you collect the metrics. Okay, so as I already said, your Docker daemon is a target here. Your target can be a simple Windows machine, Linux machine, Kubernetes pod. Okay, so basically, if Kubernetes pods are destroyed and created all the time, your Prometheus can use the service discovery mechanism to dynamically discover the targets. And for all the short-lived jobs, you can take the help of push gateway. So you ask your short-lived jobs to push the metrics to push gateway, and push gateway will store it temporarily. And whenever Prometheus server retrieves them, gateway will give it back. And also you have job exporters. What is the use of this job exporter is, in case if you don't know how to export your metrics, job exporters can actually help you. So let's say I'll just search for Prometheus exporters. Okay, so you don't know how to export your database metrics. You don't have to worry. You can just come to these exporters here, and I'll say MySQL Server Exporter. So this is the exporter that is responsible for exposing all the MySQL metrics, like whether MySQL is up or not, its version, number of errors, deadlocks. Okay, so how you can actually run this exporter is, you know, you will run it as another like a container. This container will talk to your MySQL and get its minimal data, I mean its data, and this container is going to collect and form that particular metric format. And this container now becomes the target for your Prometheus. Getting it?
The port on which this opens, the metrics, it exports.
That depends on the container. Let's say you have the database container, MySQL. You don't know how to export this. What I'm doing is I'm creating a MySQL exporter container. So this MySQL exporter container connects to this database and gets all the metrics. Okay. So now your metrics are here. So MySQL exporter will just convert those metrics so Prometheus can understand them. Now Prometheus, can use this exporter as the target. Okay. Okay.
Okay, everything will be slash metrics, right? By default.
It depends, how that exporter is written, like on what endpoints your metrics are exposed by that particular container. It's not always slash metrics.